Welcome everybody back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. I'm Tristan Harlan here with Cooper Melder, and you know, we've got a different feel in the studio today because the Red Wolves, for at least football, are 2-0 for the first time since Cooper and I know I don't know about you, but since I was in kindergarten in the year 2008.
Yeah, 2008 was a very special year for the Red Wolves. It was actually their first year as the Red Wolves, and I think we beat Texas A&M.
Oh, Cooper, you should have been there. Kyle Field in the press box, he was swaying with all the people. But when the Red Wolves, when they beat the Aggies and the fans knew it, you could hear a pin drop. How quiet it was.
And if you want to hear the rest of that story, the full story, just go ask for Mr. Sullivan. He was actually there at Kyle Field.
It was his first game actually shooting highlights on the sidelines. Now, he's probably going to kill us when we come back in the studio for making fun of his stories, but we love him regardless.
But I'm going to butter him up real quick. I don't know if we mentioned it, but that new intro for Red Wolf Roundtable.
Ooh, baby.
It's beautiful. Tremendous.
Tremendous. Well, hey, when it's your senior year, you get nice things around here, apparently. But, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot to talk about today. Not only are the Red Wolves 2-0 for the first time since 2008, but other sports are on a tantrum.
Yes.
Soccer. Last week when we did the show, they were actually playing Kansas State in the A-State Soccer Complex. They ended up drawing against the Wildcats. Now, this was a game that a lot of people deemed to be very important. Now, the Red Wolves, they came out, they showed out, but they didn't win, but hey, they didn't lose neither.
No, it was a 0-0 draw, 0-0. Arkansas State had 7 shot attempts compared to Kansas State's 12. And I mentioned we need more corner kicks, and we actually did that. We had 4 compared to those 3s. We just couldn't get any offensive going. But the defense played strong. We didn't allow a goal. So, you know, yeah, we didn't win, but like you said, we didn't lose.
Yeah, the Red Wolves, they had 6 saves to Kansas State's 3. Now then they go on to Western Kentucky to play a former Sun Belt Conference foe, and they actually win that game on the road 2-1.
They did win that game. It was a good bounce back, and you're seeing the logo. Man,
what a
logo. Big red from Western Kentucky. You'll love to see it. Western Kentucky, they were really firing shot after shot. You're seeing they only had 10 shots, but they only had 1 save. Compared to our 4, we ended up winning 2-1, and overall, it's a good way to get back on track after losing to Louisiana Tech. You had a tough draw against Kansas State, go on the road to Western Kentucky, and you pick up a win. Now, they do play Thursday, but we got a bunch of rain coming these next few days.
Right, there is a hurricane on the coast, so hopefully none of the games get affected by that. But this A-State soccer team, while yes, they are talented, there's one bone I have to pick with the roster.
Okay.
Now, of course, a lot of them are my friends, love them to death, but the one thing I do not like when it comes to this team is how many fouls they're committing. I mean, going back to the Kansas State game, they had 7 fouls to Kansas State 6, and they actually got awarded, I say awarded, but they actually got penalized with a yellow card in the 88th minute of the contest to Allie Owens. And then if you go over to the Western Kentucky game, there was 3 yellow cards all given to Red Wolves. Adafe got one in the 35th minute. Gertie got one in the 59th minute. And then Emma Riley got one in the 61st minute. Now, while I'm not saying I could play better than the A-State soccer team, the fouls have got to be limited. The fouls have got to stop because, I mean, I'd hate for this team to get to Sun Belt Conference play and they're losing because of penalty kicks, or they're losing because they're just fouling that much. Now, don't get me wrong. I love scrappy defense. I love physical play. In any sport, I love it. But the fouls have got to be limited, and I'm sure Coach Dooley and the rest of the coaching staff has preached that to the team. I'm sure a defensive leader like Mackenzie Robinson has preached that to her teammates. But something's got to change before it's too late.
Yeah, but as long as you're committing the foul outside of the penalty box and they're not getting free kicks, I'm kind of okay with it. You want to kind of send a message like you're not going to be able to get anything easily. If you're going to try to attack on our defense, we're going to come in, we're going to throw our body at you a little bit. I know soccer's not too big of a contact sport, but they're showing, you know what, we'll get down, we'll get scrappy, we'll get you on the grass, get a little mud on our jerseys, a little blood, sweat, and tears, all that good stuff. But I like the physicality. I really do.
Right. Well, speaking of women's sports here at Arkansas State University, the volleyball team. I mean, we've talked in recent years about how Brian Gerwig's, record here at Arkansas State necessarily at the best, but right now they've got a 5-1 start to their season.
Yeah, and it's all due to senior Sarah Martinez. She actually won Sunbelt Conference Defensive Player of the Week. She's been just killer all season, playing great defense, and it's a reason they're 5-1 right now.
Yeah, I mean, Martinez, she's really the one that kind of everybody pinpoints when they're playing the Red Wolves on the volleyball court, and it's one of those things where, of course, we talked about Brian Gerwig at the helm of the Red Wolves, how, they haven't done a lot of things, how they haven't had a, decent season. But Sarah Martinez, that's kind of your lead Red Wolf there. I mean, they went to the Sunbelt Conference tournament last season and it almost shocked the world. Now they're 5-1 thanks to Martinez. And, hey, who's to say that we don't see her name more frequently in the Sunbelt Player of the Weeks?
Yeah, and, what I'm liking to see, you always preach in football, defense wins championship, but you're seeing it now in soccer and with our volleyball team. Both teams are doing really good, both teams with only one loss, and that's just good due to the good defense both teams have been playing, especially our volleyball team, picking up a big win. I think it was 2 weeks ago against Ole Miss.
Yeah, Ole Miss, that was a, upset at least for me. But, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about some football and the Tulsa win versus Tulsa right here on Red Wolf Roundtable.
Students should watch ASU-TV just to see the creativity that a college student can get. The creativity that some of these students have is truly amazing. Getting that experience can really just take you further, and I feel like our program does that for a lot of students.
I think one of the things I learned at Arkansas State was life is 10% of what happens to you, 90% of how you respond to it, and that's just something that I live by.
A-State is home, and they're going to treat you like you're a part of the family.
ASU-TV, covering all your favorite sports. From Red Wolf Roundtable to Westside football and more, ASU-TV has you covered. Tune in now to ASU-TV for news and coverage on these sports and more.
Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU TV, and now it's time to transition from volleyball and soccer to some football. This past Saturday, your Arkansas State Red Wolves had a big-time win against Tulsa, and we're 2-0, baby.
Yeah, like we mentioned, first time we're 2-0 since 2008, and man, it's a good day to be a Red Wolf.
It is a good day to be a Red Wolf. I mean, we're thinking about last year. We're coming off a 73-0 loss to Oklahoma, then a 31-3 loss to Memphis, but now it's a whole new story. Close win against UCA, another close win this weekend, and it's just a great day to be a Red Wolf.
Right, so let's go ahead and dive in a little bit to the game. I mean, what more can you say other than execution, premier? I don't know. I mean, I was trying to go somewhere with it, but it didn't work out. But, I mean, it's really a tale of two halves. I mean, the first half, Arkansas State came out there, and it was like, okay, we're back in 2021, 2022, when they were only winning 1 or 2 games. Then they came out, second half, it was like a whole different dynamic of the team. I mean, they came out, they tackled well, they executed well on the offensive side. Jalen Rayner able to escape the pocket. I've been saying this all year long, and even some of last year. You get Rayner out of the pocket, you extend plays, you find the end zone more. But here's what I want to mention. Justin Parks, the first game against UCA, gets hurt. gets pulled out of the game. I don't think we saw him for the remainder of the UCA contest. Then he comes back this week to play Tulsa. He had one of the biggest plays of the first half where he knocked the ball out of the back of the end zone for a touchback for the Red Bulls to take over.
Yeah, that was honestly a changing point in the game. We only were down 17-7 at halftime. It could have been 24-7 coming into half, and that's just a big difference being down 10 compared to being down 17. So that was a big-time play, and our defense stepped it up from the get-go to start the second half. Tulsa, they got the ball to start the second half. They could have drove downfield, scored, got it 24-7, and it could have been Fat Lady singing game over. But we get a pick, and we go short little drive, we score, and then next thing you know, Courtney Jackson takes one 77-yard punt return to the house, and after that, the momentum shifted all the way to the Red Wolves, and our defense only gave up 7 points for the rest of the game.
Right, and here's something that, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, but the kind of absence of Jaquez Cross only having 6 yards and the appearance of Zach Wallace having about 79 yards really kind of set the tone for the rushing game. I mean, of course, as I mentioned, Rayner had 88 yards and got in for a score, but that's something you don't see. I mean, usually it's Jaquez Cross setting the tone of the offense. Jaquez Cross getting 20, 30 yards a carry or even, more than 50 yards for the game. But it was more the Zach Wallace show. And don't get me wrong, I love seeing it. Zach Wallace, great running back, great third down back. But when you're talking of the elusiveness, Zach Wallace kind of checked all the marks on the box for what you wanted to see in a running back. I mean, he ran over one guy. He, as I like to say when I call the West Side games, he rumbled, bumbled, and stumbled for a first down a couple times. And it's one of those things where we've preached this on the show enough to where it's finally starting to happen, and it's finally, and it makes us look better than we actually are because they're doing it and it's working. I said it was going to be a shootout. What was the second half? A shootout. And it's absolutely mind-blowing the fact that when Rayner only gets sacked one time that entire game, he only throws one interception. He goes 21 for 32 with 255 yards. The Red Wolves have an offense that actually move. They actually move the ball down the field. They actually want to drive the ball. They actually want to win instead of just stalling out and just punt every drive.
Yeah, and you're seeing the stats now. Arkansas State had 255 passing yards compared to Tulsa's 199. Tulsa did have more rushing yards than us at 166 compared to our 141. Both teams had 2 turnovers, and one of those turnovers was on a punt in the first half. Courtney Jackson, he was trying to get away. The ball took a bad bounce, hit his leg. Tulsa got good field position and scored. But Courtney Jackson made up for it in the second half, got that punt return. And speaking of Zach Wallace, that dude has gotten so much stronger than last year. When I'm on the field filming him, he's hitting the hole a lot quicker. And when he's in open field, it's one-on-one. Most guys, they try to make a move. They try to, juke him out. No, Zach, he's going to run you over. He would come up there, stiff arm, put his hand in his face, and just shove the dude to the ground like nobody's business. The transition from last year to this year has been really, really big for the Red Wolves, and you're seeing it because he's getting a lot more touches, a lot more carries, whereas last year, the only time we really saw Zach Wallace out on the field was when it was a 3rd and short or we're on the 5-yard line trying to punch it in at the goal line because, he maybe wasn't as quick as Jaquez Cross was, but now he's gotten a lot quicker, he's gotten bigger, he's stronger, and that dude's just a straight-up dog.
Yeah, and here's the thing that we haven't even touched on yet. The week 1 to week 2 kind of differential for Jalen Rayner. Week 1, Jalen Rayner was underthrowing receivers, overthrowing receivers.
You couldn't find him.
You just couldn't find him. And you only saw one instance of that versus Tulsa where he overthrew Corey Rucker. Now, again, that happens. That's just quarterbacks being quarterbacks. But for an offense that had 2 guys have 60 or more receiving yards and then 2 guys have 2 receiving touchdowns, I mean, come on now. That's elementary style play. I mean, Reagan Ely, a name that we haven't said on the show a lot, 68 yards. Corey Rucker, who we've mentioned a bunch on the show, 60 yards. Hunter Summers, a name that we've never mentioned on the show, 45 yards. And, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But here's the question that I want to pose to you, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more. But does this Red Wolf offense has the Red Wolves found their stride in the offense, and can they carry that stride into Ann Arbor?
I hope so, but my only problem is we've only seen one good half from the Red Wolf offense both weeks. Last against UCA, it was week 1. It was the first half. The offense looked really, really good. They were only up 13-0, but they were moving the ball up and down the field, getting points, whether it was field goals or a touchdown. And then second half came, and it's like they came alive in the final minute to play. Whereas this past week against Tulsa, our offense couldn't be found. We had that one scoring drive where Adam Jones, he got that touchdown reception wide open. And then after we scored 7, our offense disappeared. Then we come out in the second half. It's like, hey, we're playing football today. We have a game going on right now. They come alive. They score 21 unanswered points and win the game 28-24. If we're going to want to beat Michigan, we're going to have a full game from our offense and from our defense. We can't just decide, okay, defense is going to play the first half and then offense is going to come alive the second half, or offense is going to take a half off, defense is going to really need to step it up. So if we can get a full game from this team, I don't think there's anybody in the Sun Belt that can beat them. I think they could honestly, they play their best game, they could go out there and beat Michigan. I mean, Michigan's been struggling. We'll get into that. But we've won some awards these past 2 weeks, both on the special teams. And this week, Courtney Jackson was named Sun Belt Conference Special Team Player of the Week with his punt return. He had only 78 yards, but his long was the 77 with a touchdown.
Yeah, Courtney Jackson, absolutely electric. I mean, we kind of talked about him off camera before we came on for the show. And, Courtney Jackson, Rucker mentioned to me how dynamic Courtney would be in that offense, how electric. If you take away Rucker, then you're going to have to deal with Jackson. But this is the thing. I don't even think we've seen Courtney Jackson at 100% yet. Yeah. When I say 100%, I don't mean health-wise, but I mean full potential. Because Jackson, this last game, on the offensive side of the ball, he only had 3 receptions for 20 yards. But who's to say against Michigan you get more looks, and then you go to Iowa State and you get more looks, which I got to say real quick off the cusp, but shout out Gavin Grubbs in our dynasty. But he was Iowa State, and I beat him, and the Red Bulls are 6-0.
All right.
Hopefully that happens in real life. But the thing is Courtney Jackson is such an electric, dynamic receiver. If he gets open in space, he's going to catch that ball. And he give him a room to run, he's going to score. He's going to do everything in his power to get the end zone, to get points on the board and find the end zone. I mean, Courtney Jackson has the ability, will give you the ability to open up the offense for Keith Heckendorf and Butch Jones to maybe even run a reverse, to run some wildcat and really get the ball into the end zone when it matters most. That's why Courtney Jackson has got to be the primary receiver for this game against Michigan.
Yeah, but what I like to see from this past game against Tulsa was just the way we were throwing the ball out to very many different receivers. Like you're saying, we've never mentioned this name before. We never mentioned this name before. But if Courtney Jackson's not having a good name or Corey Rucker's not having a good game, I'm fine because we have a bunch of good receivers this year.
Right. Well, we're going to get more into the Ann Arbor game when we come back from break. You're watching Red Wolf Roundtable here. Where else? But on ASU-TV. Stick around.
When you say experience counts, it's experience that counts for a lifetime.
Boxes, I cannot fit in the boxes. Stop it, quitting was never an option. Exhausted, this passion is never exhausted. And you cannot stop it, nah, you cannot stop it. Quitting was never an option. And you cannot stop it, nah, you cannot stop it.
Here to deliver the latest news on A-State sports, ranging from football, basketball, baseball, and more.
I'm your host, Tristan Harlan, alongside your other host, Cooper Melder.
Red Wolf Roundtable is your local sports source.
Tune in to Red Wolf Roundtable to get your fix on sports talk and news.
ASU-TV, shows like Red Wolf Roundtable, ASU-TV News, Westside Football, and more. Gain real-life experience while doing what you love. Get involved with ASU-TV today.
Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU TV. And the Arkansas State Red Wolves this Saturday, they're traveling up to Ann Arbor, Michigan. They're going to the Big House to take on the defending national championship, the Michigan Wolverines.
Right, Cooper. I mean, you mentioned defending national champions who last week they lost to Texas. Horns down. If you know, you know. But this game is, you know, it's kind of got an 08 feeling. If you know, you know.
Yeah, a little 08 feeling you're seeing. Michigan, they do not look like the same team they were last year. You know, they lost J.J. McCarthy. They lost Jim Harbaugh. They've lost a lot of key players, and you're seeing it on the offense. They're only averaging 21 points per game, but their defense has been a stereotypical Michigan defense. They don't allow a lot of points, only allowing 20 and a half. Arkansas State, they're averaging 29 and a half points per game, and our offense looks a lot better than theirs does.
Right, and you know, it goes to say that this game has a lot of potential. Of course, now we say all this, and they're going to go to Ann Arbor and, you know, get beat, hopefully not 73-0, but they're going to get beat, you know, by two or more touchdowns. But the thing with this game, and this is why it's interesting to me, but it's not just a Week 3 matchup for the Red Wolves. They're actually playing someone who was on the roster last year.
They are actually. Surprisingly. Something like the former kicker, I could be wrong, Dominic Zavada. He's performing like he did at Arkansas State up in Michigan. PATs, he's 100%. He's made all 5 field goal attempts, and he has his long already this year, 55 yards. He's made all of his field goals from 50 yards plus. And, you know, I think it'll be really fun to, you know, knock that number down, give him his first miss, block a couple field goals, maybe give it a little announcer jinx, say, oh, he's coming in, hasn't missed a kick all year, and then next thing you know, Red Wolves block it. Because if I'm thinking correctly, that 07 season when App State beat Michigan in the Big House, they did block a kick at the end of the game.
Yeah, they did. Well, and here's the thing, okay, now, again, this game could completely go one-sided very quickly. Michigan can blow out the Red Wolves. But this game's very winnable for Arkansas State, and I'm going to break this down for you. This Red Wolves team looks more electric than any team Butch Jones has ever had under the helm as the Red Wolves head guy. I mean, you got Jalen Rayner electric, you got Courtney Jackson electric. But the thing is we've seen this Michigan offense and defense last week against Texas. Now, I'm not comparing Arkansas State and Texas, but when the animal is wounded is when you want to strike.
Yeah, because they got really beat up against Texas. I mean, they couldn't do anything. They did not look good at all against Texas. I know comparing Arkansas State to Texas is a really big, wide margin, a big difference, but Michigan, they got beat up last week. But what the Red Wolves have to know is Michigan, they're seeing this game as a comeback game for them, a game where they can really just hit all their really fundamentals, things like that, where they can get back on track and win the Big Ten. But Arkansas State, you think last year when they went to Oklahoma, it was week 1, they got beat 73-0. When they went to Ohio State, they got beat. They really never had any momentum going into these big away games, and now you're seeing it. You had a big win against UCA, a big comeback win against Tulsa in the second half. This team is riding high on the momentum train, and if you can carry that momentum over, there's a slight chance for an upset. Now, we were looking at it before the show, looking at the stats, and they had Michigan as a 92.9% favorite to win the game, and we only had 7%. But like Tristan, you told me, what'd you say?
So you're telling me there's a chance?
They're giving us a chance, and like I said last year, don't let the Red Wolves get hot.
Well, and here's the thing, okay, and this kind of goes for college football as a whole, and I know that this is something we usually do on the show, but look at all the upsets that have already happened this year alone in college football. Of course, you had Georgia Tech beating Florida State. Now, I'm not saying that's a group of 5 team beating a big Power 5 school, but what just happened last week to
Notre
a team
Dame.
that Arkansas State lost to in a bowl on a controversial call, the Northern Illinois Huskies? They went, were they in?
They were at Notre Dame.
They were at Notre Dame, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cooper, but I think they won.
They did win, and Michigan had a chance, I think, to win the game, but missed a field goal.
Yeah, so, I mean.
Not Michigan, Notre Dame.
Dummy, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get to that one later. But, I mean, who's to say that the Red Wolves don't come in with all the momentum? Because, again, like you just said, we've never seen the Red Wolves play a big-time opponent with this much momentum coming into the game. Now, again, we sit here and we say this till we're purple in the face, and then they go and Michigan, of course, runs the table on us. But what I will say is that if Rayner can complete these short passes and Arkansas State can play fundamental football, who's to say it's not closer than a lot of these experts think?
Yeah, and the thing is, if we're going to want to win this game, we're going to need to establish the run game. We're going to really need to hammer Zach Wallace and Jaquez Cross. They're really going to need at least 15 attempts each and just drive the ball downfield. In the second half against Tulsa, we had a drive in the third quarter, took up 6 minutes of that precious game clock, drove about 80 yards just, first down, got it to 2nd and 5, 3rd and 1, first down. And we just kept driving downfield and scored. If we can do that and get some turnovers, why not us? Why not the Red Wolves?
Why not the
Red Wolves?
Why not?
But if we're going to win this game, we're going to need scores on offense, defense, and special teams. But when we're on offense, even if we don't come away with points, we need to drain that clock. We need long drives. We need to keep Michigan on the field and get that defense really worn out. Now transitioning to Michigan's offense, Donovan Edwards, he hasn't had a great season. He was up there being talks of maybe winning the Heisman. If you've seen him the past 2 games, he's been non-existent. He's looking to get back on track to say, I belong in the Heisman race, and I'm going to prove it this game. We're going to have to stop their backs because Michigan, they always produce really, really good running backs. And if we let Donovan Edwards get going, it's going to be a long, long day for the Red Wolves.
Right. Well, we're going to go ahead and take another timeout before we get into our predictions and see who's winning the race. But real quick, before we go to break, I want to quote Mr. Dustin Sullivan. The Red Wolves, they got to be like App State. Hot, hot, hot. We'll be right back right here on Red Wolf Roundtable.
Students should watch ASU-TV just to see the creativity that a college student can get. The creativity that some of these students have is truly amazing. Getting that experience can really just take you further, and I feel like our program does that for a lot of students.
I think one of the things I learned at Arkansas State was life is 10% of what happens to you, 90% of how you respond to it, and that's just something that I live by.
A-State is home, and they're going to treat you like you're a part of the family.
ASU-TV, covering all your favorite sports. From Red Wolf Roundtable to Westside football and more, ASU-TV has you covered. Tune in now to ASU-TV for news and coverage on these sports and more.
Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV, and Cooper and I are kind of in a race right now. Not speed-wise, because obviously just looking at the two of us, I would obviously dust him because, I got the labor fees.
Mm-hmm.
But around the college football world, we have been giving our predictions at some point in the show, and I think it's time to look how we did last week and who we got this week.
Yeah, I think we got our first losses. We're looking here. I'm 7-1, you're 6-2. And we're going to mention the first game, Arkansas State versus Michigan. I have it a closer game than you do, 30-17. I have Michigan winning. Then I have Arizona State beating Texas State, East Carolina beating App State, and then Vandy beating Georgia State.
Yeah, and look, here's the thing. I don't want to just piggyback off your predictions every single week in hopes that you get them right for me. But, 6-2, there's still a lot of games left in the season that I could come back and end up winning. But, hey, you never count out Tristan Harlan. But, Cooper, I got something to say. When it comes to this Arkansas State-Michigan game, they're counting out the Red Wolves.
What?
They ain't giving us a chance.
What?
They think Rainer's going to throw 6 interceptions.
What?
But let me tell you, when the Red Wolves get hot,
what?
They're going to go down to Ann Arbor.
What?
They're going to beat Michigan.
What?
They're going to celebrate Butch Jones with a Gatorade bath.
What?
Then we're going to come on Red Wolf Roundtable.
What?
We're going to talk about the game.
What?
We're going to talk about the game.
What?
We're going to talk about the game.
What?
I said we're going to talk about the game.
What?
And how the Red Wolves are undefeated still.
What?
And how the experts got it wrong,
What?
and that's the bottom line because Red Wolf Roundtable said so.
You said that, but if we pull up your prediction again, you have Michigan beating us 50-14.
Hey, listen, I never said I was the sharpest tool in the kitchen. Sharpest knife in the kitchen.
Yeah, something like that.
That one, yeah.
Yeah.
Never claimed to be a smart feller.
Yeah, a fart smeller. But
Just shout out Bud Miller.
Yes, but if you are, every year Red Wolf Roundtable, we go to a big game for the Red Wolves, and sadly, we won't be going to Michigan. I mean, it's 12 hours away, a bunch of money, understandable, future road game ahead. But if you are making that travel up to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and you're wondering, what should I pack? What should I wear? Well, obviously, Red Wolf stuff. If you didn't, you'd be a dummy.
Yeah.
But we have the weather forecast for this game. We actually have it week 3. The high's going to be at 83 with a low of 59. It's great football weather, 11-mile-per-hour wind. And so it's an 11 a.m. kickoff Central Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, since we're going up to Michigan. So if you're thinking, okay, what should I wear? If it was me, I'd be short sleeves all game. But if a little not used to the cold nature up in the north, bring a light little jacket, and by the time halftime comes, you can take that off, and it'll be smooth sailing to the end of the game.
Yeah, because up north, they don't have this thing called humidity.
Yankees.
Thank you. But, I'm glad we're doing this because it's kind of taken a life of its own.
Yes.
I mean, with the weather, with the game day predictions, I mean, it just shows you how a show can evolve. What has it been now? 4 years of doing it consistently, week after week after week, except that 1 month. But I mean, the thing is like this Red Wolf team. I cannot stress this enough. Has the chance to be the best team the Arkansas State Red Wolves have had when it comes to football since they won the Division II National Championship back in the 70s.
Yeah, and, we really haven't seen a good Red Wolf football team since the 2010s, when we had 4 different coaches, changes, everything like that, winning 8 games, 7 games every year. I'm not saying we have to win to have a great season, but what we could do is go out there and be competitive. Go out there, make it a game. Do something right. Just go out there, play your style of play. Because if we go out there and get beat 73-0 again, or 50-14 as Tristan predicted, you're now looking into the next week at Iowa State, which is a much more winnable game, and you have none of that confidence. But say you do go to Michigan, we get beat, but it's a close game, and we only lose 24-10 or 24-17, like you're in it to the end. Then you can travel to Iowa State, take on the Cyclones, and really have a shot at taking down a Big 12 opponent.
Right, and I think realistically speaking, looking at the schedule, I think that Iowa State game won't be the make it or break it game for the Red Wolves this season, but it's going to be that one game that's really going to set home if the Red Wolves are a good football team or not. And hey, another thing that's taken its life
A little road trip.
A little road trip, but another thing that's kind of taken a life of its own is the calendar.
Yeah, I love seeing those 2 green W's. Hopefully we don't have too many big red L's popping up these next couple weeks, but the Red Wolves, they're going to be away for home. We go to Michigan, Iowa State bye week, then October 5th. Pretty good day. I mean, start of the month of October is pretty big for us.
Yeah, I'll turn 22. Cooper will turn 22. And actually, speaking of October 1st, Isaiah Nelson will turn 21, Arkansas State men's basketball player. So happy early birthday to him. I'm sure we'll tell him happy birthday on the show as well. But October is a pretty big month for us usually.
It really is. Come back home against South Al, first conference opponent, at home October 5th. We just have a bunch to look forward to. And hopefully next week we'll be able to talk about the big upset of the century, like I said, against Ohio State.
He's been saying it for 3 years now. Hopefully this year we'll get it. Not if you ask me, because I'm realistic. I'm just that guy. Sorry.
Okay.
But ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting edition of Red Wolf Roundtable. Hopefully, as Cooper said, when we come back next week, we'll talk about the upset of the century. But until then, make sure you keep your Wolves up and watch the Red Wolves, and make sure you tune in every week to Red Wolf Roundtable right here on ASU-TV.